My name is Edwish Ingabire and I'm together with Mutoni Jackie and Queen Mutoni. We are going to share about the 9 foods that we've been able to study. Each of us had at least a chance of studying 3 foods, 2 of them from different abroad cultures and 1 from our own culture. So I'm going to give the floor to Jackie to tell us about the cultural values and rituals related to the foods that she studied.
Thank you, Edwish. I studied 2 cultures, which were the Japanese rice and the Hindu weddings. In both of those 2 cultures, they all have different foods which had different rituals and how they were used in their cultures, the values that they gave to those foods. I'll begin with the Hindu weddings, where I studied that in the Hindu, they have like a menu during their weddings where they use 3 types of food, and that is the coconut, rice, and a paste of Kenyan seed mixed with brown sugar. All of those 3 foods had something it symbolized in those cultures. Like, to begin with the coconut, it was used to symbolize blessing and blessing to the newlyweds. Like, the way it would be done, the parents of the bride would give their coconut to the bride to take it to the bridegroom. And when the bridegroom accepted the coconut, it would symbolize that he is really willing to take the girl in for marriage. And also it would show like the family support towards the newlyweds and how the families were really connected and relating with one another. Then, to talk about also the paste of Kenyan seed mixed with brown sugar, it would always be placed on a betel leaf. So how it was done, they would crush the Kenyan seed, then mix it with that brown sugar, and they placed it on that betel leaf. So it symbolized that in life there will always be bitterness and happiness. So like the newlyweds, the people would try to show them that even though they are going to get married, they should not only expect the best. There will always be like hard times and good times, but in all, they would have to be together. So how it was done, they would get like that betel leaf and put it on each other's forehead. Then for rice also symbolized sustenance to the newlyweds, like how it would be done. They would welcome the guests who have been invited to attend the wedding, and after that they would throw the pieces of rice onto the newlyweds. And in that way it would show the people's unity and people's involvement in that marriage, meaning that even though the newlyweds were going to begin a new family, they still have the people around and the families supporting them. So as you can see, all those 3 foods had something they were representing, and they meant different values to the people in Hindu. Then to also talk about the Japanese rice, as the name suggests, it is all about rice. Like in Japan, they reached a point where like their rice was given different names. Like it would be called gohan, which meant both cooked rice and uncooked rice. So the people in Japan really used rice differently, like most especially during the traditional festivals, which were the Buddhist festivals. Like during those festivals, their gods would descend like to the people, and they were expecting the Japanese to always present gifts to those gods. And according to the research, mostly the gifts which were given to those gods were gifts which the gods were happy with. So the people would carry the rice, take it to the shrines to give it to their gods, meaning that they would not take any other type of food. They would like make their rice differently, like they would give glutinous rice, rice balls, rice cakes. They would try to make it look different, but all in all, what it would be made of, it would be rice. So like somewhere, someone during the research, someone said that in Japan, if you don't have rice like in a home, it would be like you don't have what to eat. Meaning that rice would be used during breakfast, lunchtime, and even dinner. So like on the Japanese table, whenever they were going to have anything to eat, you would expect to see rice there. So basically, rice was used during those traditional ceremonies, and it symbolized like when the gods were happy while receiving that rice, it would like in return make the people also happy, and the unity among the people would still be cohesed, and they would all be together during those ceremonies. So all those two foods that I managed to research about, they had different foods, but all those different foods meant something different in those cultures. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jackie. That sounds interesting. I like how the foods in the Hindu weddings had a specific meaning. It's not for the purpose of consuming and being healthy, but it has the culture and rituals related to it. But I'm wondering, is it a past habit, or even the recent generations are still using those foods in their weddings?
Well, according to the research that I made, because I tried to dig deep into these cultures, I learned that even up to now, even the new generations that are coming, they're still using those types of foods. Meaning that the Hindus are so much connected to their culture. They really don't want to do away with their culture because it involves all the people within their communities. So even up to now, they still use the same foods during their weddings.
Thank you, Jackie. Your research was really interesting. But I had one question. As in the Hindu wedding ceremonies, you talked about the types of food, as in rice and coconut and the paste of cumin seed, I think. But was it a must that those specific types of food had to be served in the Hindu weddings?
Well, it was really a must because those three foods really meant something to the people. During weddings, we all know that at times they can bring in other types of foods like meat, maybe also bring more other foods to make the wedding more colorful. But those three foods really meant something a lot. So if you had a wedding and you didn't use the coconuts to show that the family is in supporting with your wedding, then it would send a different message to the people who have attended that wedding. And if you don't invest in welcome the guests to throw rice to the newlyweds, then it wouldn't show any kind of unity, or if the people are really supporting the wedding. So it was really a must that those three foods had to be there.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. If there are no more questions, I would like to welcome Queen to also tell us what she learned during the three research that she made.
Yeah, thank you, Jackie. I had also the chance of learning about two types of cultures, among which were the Tlingit potlatch and the Pennsylvanian Dutch culture. Starting by the Tlingit potlatch, actually potlatches were festivities organized in the past to declare or maintain someone's social status. Yeah, the potlatches were organized for specific occasions like the birth of a child, cremation ceremonies, or even to celebrate a daughter's first menses. Yeah, in the potlatches, people were invited to share food, receive gifts, or payments. Yeah, there were many of the Northwestern societies like the Nootka, Haida, and Tlingit celebrated potlatches, but my research was more based on the Tlingit potlatch. Yeah, in the Tlingit potlatch, there were specific types of food that were served. For example, when there was a surplus of salmon and well after a bounty, a host took that occasion to invite the whole community and so as to share that food. And when there was no surplus of salmon and well, in the Tlingit potlatches, they served seal. And seal was prepared with its oil, and all the food accompanying it were immersed in that oil. In normal days, the Tlingit people used normal utensils, wooden utensils, but in the Tlingit potlatches, they changed and used wooden and decorated utensils like decorated spoons and dishes. But for the dishes, they were they had the size of a canoe, and they emphasized more on the quantity of food served. Yeah, in the potlatches also, the people were served in order of priority or the rank you had in that society. For example, the territory's chief was the first served and was allowed to take the biggest amount of food in all the people invited, and all the others followed. that showed that the Tlingit people valued honor and respect. Um, after the potlatches, the guests were allowed to take the food back home and share with the rest of their families which were home and didn't have the chance to attend the potlatches. And that portrayed really the value of generosity they had. Yeah, from that, from the types of foods served at potlatches, what is the inference is that the Tlingit people valued respect, honor, and generosity from the different types of food they consume. And I also worked on the Pennsylvanian Dutch culture. Actually, the Pennsylvanian Dutch was a culture of people who came from Germany and Switzerland in the 19th and 18th century. And they settled in the southeastern and south central part of Pennsylvania. Yeah, those people had specific types of food they also liked, and what I had the chance to learn was the gumbis. The gumbis was a casserole of shredded meat, dried fruit, and onions. And the gumbis were served in a common pot, and people dipped chunks of bread in the common pot. It was actually a meal served for fun, for people who wanted to sit around each other and discuss about everything. And there was also the chicken pot pie, which was a flat stew with square noodles. And the chicken pot pie was served especially for birthday parties or for the return of a beloved family member after a cold winter outside. Yeah, the chicken pot pie was served to as in portrayed a family spirit, and it assembled all the family together to celebrate a common event. And there was also the roast pork. The roast pork actually originated from the from a church which organized an oyster pork supper in 1870s, and since then the Pennsylvanian families have been consuming the roast pork. The roast pork is actually served on the New Year's Eve and symbolizes luck and prosperity in the next year. That is the main reason why the Pennsylvanian people like eating roast pork. Yeah, there was also the shufli pies. The shufli pies actually were born 300 years ago, yeah, I think, and were invented by women. Yeah, the shufli pies, from its name, the shufli pie came from the fact that the syrup and molasses contained in the syrup contain, in the pie attract flies, and the people who are cooking the shufli pies are obliged to shoo them away. That is from when came the name shufli. Yeah, the shufli pies were actually a very significant meal in the Pennsylvanian culture, as in people from Pennsylvania liked everything related to pies. They could eat pies in the morning, afternoon, evening, all the hours of the day. And the shufli pies were most of all cooked by women, and they were served to the whole family, and it shows that family spirit they had. Yeah, I think that's the types of food I learned about. Yeah, if you have questions, you can ask me.
Okay, thank you, Queen, so much for your sharing with us. The research was really so interesting. Like, I never thought that people would really pick like food from the same pot. If you try to see how the world is changing and modernization, you find that everyone is at the table with his own plate and a fork, and everyone is concentrating on eating alone. So that really made me wonder, like, in the Pennsylvanian Dutch cuisine, do they still have that culture, like they still pick from the same pot, or because of modernization, that culture was erased and it's no longer existing?
Yeah, actually, Pennsylvania people are conservative people. They still have that culture. They don't even use spoons or yeah. They have kept that culture of not using forks and spoons or spoons and knives. They still use hands, and it portrays that unity they have, and they didn't change their culture.
Yeah, it sounds interesting. I also have a comment about there is a food that you said in Pennsylvania, that cuisine that was served at the New Year's Eve. Like it sounds well that there is a specific food, and when you're sharing it with some people, they are saying like it's a wish of prosperity. That's something like it is. There are foods that have rituals and cultural values attached to them.
Yeah.
So that sounds interesting to me too.
Thank you. If you have no other questions, maybe I can give the floor to Edwige to share with us the types of food on which she will serve.
Thank you, Queen. I started on two things. One is an event, another is a food. The first one is tailgating event. This is a pre-game ritual done by American people when they were about to have the football games. So the tailgating event was always done before, like sometimes before, some minutes or some hours before the football game starts. And the purpose of having tailgate is like wishing victory. Like it was a party. The main purpose of organizing tailgating event was to party, to have fun as a certain group of people who are supporting a certain team. It was mainly done in college, in universities in America, or other professional people who had a certain team that they were supporting, and they were gathered together to party and have fun, but with intentions of being together and wishing victory, to their preferred team. So the tailgating also had foods that were pre-filled and mainly used in that event. Most of them that were always present were like hot dogs. They like to use meat. They used hot dogs, fried chicken, salads, and also different drinks. Could be beer, it could be tea, it could be different things. So it was people coming together in a certain corner of the stadium and sharing those foods and singing some songs. Like most of the rituals related to tailgating was like those fans coming and having some songs that they are repeating, and with that unity among them, and wishing victory to their preferred teams. So as they were consuming those foods, like the rituals were to have those songs that they were repetitively singing, and like they had a meaning like behind, which is wishing the victory to their preferred teams. So I can say that the cultural value related to tailgating is the unity, togetherness among people. They wanted to build that thing regardless of which is the team which is going to win, or the one which is going to lose. But the main purpose, even before the game starts, is bringing people together and like having fun and party. So that's the first event that I started on, and it was like very much interesting to me. The second one is the Hawaiian poi. Poi is a food from the Hawaiian people. It is their staple food. It has a very great meaning and significant meaning to them. It was made from taro roots. Like they had to take taro roots, and then they baked them, and they could produce the poi. So the poi was consumed very much and had a meaning in the Hawaiian people. Like the rituals related to it is that the bowl from which they used to consume the poi, it was used by their ancestors. And whenever Hawaiian people were consuming the Hawaiian poi, they could feel like they are spiritually connected to their ancestors, and that had a great meaning to them. So it was very much valued in the Hawaiian culture, and like to the extent that there is a school that was established to preserve that culture of Hawaiian poi. Like one of the values that I liked about Hawaiian poi is that when people were, according to the research that I did, a man called Hosman said that when people were sitting together, taking the poi, no one was allowed to show anger. Everyone was supposed to be happy. So you see, it's a value that they attach to a specific food. And whenever a family is gathered taking that poi recipe, no one was allowed to be like angry. Everyone was supposed to be happy and to have peace. So that unity, that harmony was brought by that specific food. It's a value to them, and it's a cultural significance to the Hawaiian people. And so briefly, that's what I've been able to study, and your questions as well as comments are welcome.
Thank you, Edwige. About the tailgating, I had a question. You talked about the different foods as in hot dogs, they use in the tailgating event, but you didn't mention that there were specific types of food they served. Was it random that they could pick any type of food they wanted, or it depended on the tailgating?
Okay, thank you, Queen. Like in the tailgating, like the main point there is those people together. Even though there were some specific foods as you asked, but it could change. Like what things that tailgaters have chosen today, they may add on some others, but as I mentioned, the specific ones were like those hot dogs, those fried chicken, salads, and then drinks. But it could like differ because it is not an event for specific people. Men could come, women could come, even kids. So if there are kids and there are women, there are everyone. Even they could bring some like cookies, like some tea, some juices, and then some beers. So it was like a variety of foods, but the specific ones were like chosen by those men tailgaters, and it was those hot dogs and chicken. But there were like many different foods like used in the tailgating event.
Thank you, Edwige, for sharing with us. Actually, I've been thinking about the Hawaiian poi and how the people had to set up like a school such that they can preserve their culture. I kind of have a comment about that because in most cultures you find that when things are changing, people will like neglect their culture and try to push it away. But for the people in Hawaii, they really valued their culture to the point that they had to set up like a school to preserve that culture. But I was wondering, is that school still existing up to now, or somehow the school had to be removed and then the culture had to change?
Thank you for your question, but I don't think that the school is now like faded away. The school is still there. Well, they said that from what I read from the article of Hosman, they said that around that school there were those taro roots from which the poi was made, and most of the time they could harvest and have some around that school some men sitting and making the poi. And also something also interesting that I learned is how people had to be very clean when making the poi. They said that if a lady is making the poi, actually the process of making poi is called tukui. Tukui is the process of preparing from taro roots to poi. So whenever a lady was doing the kui, if they had a nail polish, they had to remove it. If you're wearing a ring, you had to remove it. And if you have long hairs, you had to tie them back so that they don't mix with what you are doing. So they had to be very clean so that they could prepare that poi. So that's valuing their food. I don't know if each and every food they are preparing, they had to remove those rings and those nail polish, but there is something like ethnocentrism to their culture. Whenever they are doing it, they have to be very clean. They have specific steps to follow so that they can make sure that their cooling process is being done properly. So that's valuing their culture, and I really liked it too.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for listening. I think we can move to sharing about the foods in our own culture. And now I'm going to give floor to Queen to start and tell us about the local food that you studied and what it means.
Yeah, thank you, Edwige. in our own culture, I studied about milk. For over 1,000 years, milk has been the very basic drink that all Rwandans consume. Yeah, since I was a kid, I heard many people praising milk and its benefits, and I really wanted to know what was so special about milk and what was the value that milk represented for Rwandans. Yeah, that's when I decided to carry on and a field research, go on the field and confirm or deny the many assumptions I had about milk and to know what were the real values of milk in our ancestors' culture. Yeah, um, I I tried to answer many questions as in why was milk a valued meal in Rwanda? Yeah, milk was actually used in different ceremonies, but the main ceremony in which milk was used was the ceremony of Gusaba, or in Kinyarwanda, or giving the dowry to the bride's family by the groom. Yeah, in dowry, the bride and specifically at the time of sharing a drink in that ceremony of Gusaba, the bride and the groom shared milk, and that was a symbol that once they got married, they would they would share everything in life as married women and husband actually do. And milk was also valued for its nutrients, as in it contains proteins, and Rwandan families, especially parents, used it to give it to their children for treating malnutrition, like kwashiorkor, which was actually a disease which affected children in that time. Yeah. From the research I made, I understood what I really observed was that um, obtaining milk from cows was an activity reserved to men, as in women could not milk cows. Yeah, it was reserved for men and girls. And once girls got married, they used to throw a net-like object in between a cow's corns, and that would represent that they would never again engage in that activity. I also remarked that milk was served in special utensils, which most of all were wooden, and some of them were imongoro and ibichuba and injome. Injome was a utensil used to serve milk to children, and but that culture of serving milk in those wooden utensils has been fading over years. You see now they serve milk in cups and whatever you choose to serve milk in. Yeah, from um, what in our culture, the milk symbolizes many things. As in, a family which possessed cows and with abundant milk was considered wealthy and noble. Its milk was portrayed prosperity in a family, and from that came a saying in Kinyarwanda, people wishing others to be wealthy once they got married, and saying that muzagire urugo rutemba amata n'ubuki. Yeah, because milk was considered that whoever consumed milk felt dignity, and it was really a very strong meal that was consumed in our culture. Thank you. That is all I learned about milk. If you have questions, you can ask me.
Yeah, thank you, Queen, for sharing with us. I kind of have a question. You talked about the culture of serving milk in specific utensils fading away, and in your research, you've told us that only the men were allowed to milk cows. So I was wondering, since the other culture faded away, today, do the women do the milking, or it is that culture was preserved and up to now it is only the men who are doing the milking?
Yeah, actually, Rwandans have conserved that culture. Up to this day, women are not allowed to milk cows. Yeah, people could do it, but it is not really cultural to do that, and it's considered as a taboo. I also learned about the taboos which were associated with milk, as in people could not spill milk or consume milk with meat, and it was really considered as a taboo. Thank you.
So thank you again, Queen. I think that the turn is to Jackie to tell us also about what she studied.
Actually, I also had to make a research in my own culture, and I made a research about butter. For years and even up to now, people in Rwanda really value butter so much. And that really made me have that interest. And I was wondering, why is it that even though other foods may fade away, but people really still value butter in their homes? You find that you go to a home and butter is there. So I learned that why most people do the activity of making butter is that the butter is used for different purposes. Like, for example, it can be used as medicine, like for the skin. You can smear yourself with butter and the skin rashes that you're having can go away. Then it is also used as Vaseline. You can smear yourself with butter. And also the other most important value that I learned about butter is that it can be used to spice food. So what people would do is that in the Rwandan culture, when someone visits you in your home and you are a herdsman, you have large herds of cattle, and you serve them with food mixed with butter, it would really send a message to them, and it would show them that you're really a person who is taking good care of the cows and you're making good advantage out of that. So it would really show that you're a person who has value in your community. People would value you for that. So, for example, like during any event, and people would cook food, like in Nyagatare, where I made the research from, when they are having any event, any cultural event, any type of food which is cooked, like if they cook matoke, which is banana, they would mix it with that butter. And in that way, it would like bring the people all together, because when food is spiced with that butter, it really tastes so very nice. Then the other thing that I really observed about the making of butter, and what I understood about the subjects, is that when butter is being made, it goes through very many different processes, and different utensils are used. Like, for example, if they begin milking the cows, they would put like their milk in a calabash and then keep it for some days for it to really get ready, and then they begin the process of buchunda and then do all those other kind of processes which are needed. But what I realized is that they use different utensils. Then the other thing I learned is that the process of making butter, which is buchunda, it is done by the women. Men are not allowed to do it, and that kind of culture is still preserved up to today, whereby only the women in Rwanda are allowed to do that. And also one thing I learned is that they really value cleanliness. For you to have good quality butter, which is so tasty, you need to use utensils which are real clean, and even the women who are doing it, they are supposed to be clean. You can't just come to begin the process when you have like dust in your hands, then your milk may get spoiled. Then the other thing is that there is always a lot of carefulness and seriousness. So according to the research that I made, I observed that when they're making this butter, a person who is really making the process of buchunda is not allowed like even to move around when he's doing the process. You're allowed to settle, do it for 1 hour, and after that 1 hour you can go. Because the reason for that is when you really don't take it serious, your milk can go bad, like your butter will not come out the way you really want it to be. And that the Kinyarwanda term used for that is kuyaga. Then really in the Rwandan culture, butter is really valued so much, and countrywide, if you try to look around and analyze, all people who have cattle, which is in large quantities, they all have butter in their homes. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, you can. Yes.
Yeah, Jackie, thank you. It was very interesting. But I had a question. As in, you said that butter was used to by girls to smear on the skin, and it gave you um, your desired skin. Yeah, but I heard people had been complaining about the smell of butter when you smear it on your skin, and I was wondering if it's still a culture or if people are still using butter as Vaseline.
Actually, what is so interesting is that people even up to now are still using butter. Though the complaints are there, what people are really doing right now is that they smear that butter to themselves at night. Like when he or she is going to sleep, that's when she can apply that butter on her skin. Then in the morning, she will shower and that smell will go off. And one thing that I also didn't share with you, which is so interesting, is that one of the rituals which was associated with butter is that during marriage in Rwanda, those years back, the girls would like get married to a person whom you've never seen. So what they would do, they would put that butter on you if like you're left in a room together with your husband and you're to have sex together. So it was done to prove to prove to the community that the man really had energy. Like that butter would be so, yeah, it would be so soft. Yeah. Then if someone touched your skin, he would just, the hands would just go off and he couldn't touch you. So it would be done in that way such that the people can really know if you really have energy to really take care of your wife, or if you don't manage to hold her when she's even having that butter, then you would like pose a threat to the society. They would feel like their girl is in the wrong hands. So actually also that ritual was associated with butter, and it's also associated with the smearing it on their bodies.
Thank you, Jackie, for sharing. The food that I worked on from my own culture is sorghum beer. Sorghum beer, as you can hear, were made from sorghum, where it was turned into flour. And then in the process of preparing it, first of all, water was boiled, and then the boiled water was mixed with the flour of sorghum. And then after mixing it, it became like something like porridge, which was sometimes given to kids because there were no fermentation. And then after making that porridge look like, they had to add on a big quantity of water so that it can like lose heat. And then the mixture was kept for a day. Most of the time, the sorghum beer is prepared in the morning, because if it is prepared this morning, then it will be ready for consumption in the following morning. So at the evening of the preparation, the sorghum beer was mixed with fermentation so that it can become beer, and it was kept until the following morning ready for consumption. So the sorghum beer means it has a great meaning in the Rwandan culture. The rituals related to it are that mostly in the weddings, for example, in the dowry ceremony, after the wedding is complete, then at the evening, the family of the girl would sit and then do some criticizing about how was the dowry ceremony, what was good, what was not very good, what was not perfect. So in that discussion, the sorghum beer was taken as a beer for men and everyone else, all the invited people, so that they can keep on discussing about their wedding, and the sorghum beer was what the family could use to welcome those people when they are sitting after the dowry ceremony. So the sorghum beer had a very good cultural values to the Rwandan community, because for example, men, if you have neighbors or family members or friends who are to come to visit you, you could prepare the sorghum beer and then share with them, so that they feel united to your family, they feel welcome into your family, and it had that togetherness. It symbolized the unity among families, among friends, among neighbors. If you're preparing it and then you're inviting the whole community so that they can come and share it with you, it will be a sign of prosperity that you have harvested a lot of sorghum, and it will also be like a sign that you love your society and they are welcome in your family, and that is a unity among the Rwandan community. So mostly that's the cultural value hidden behind the sorghum beer. And about the rituals, it was consumed in many, many different parties and ceremonies in the Rwandan culture. As we know, in this modernized world, there is red wine, there is different like beers used, but at the root of the culture, the beer that was served in different events, like at the New Year Day, like at Christmas, like at different, when the baby is born and having visitors, it is the sorghum beer which was used for like welcoming visitors. So briefly, that's all that I've been able to study about the sorghum beer in Rwanda.
Okay, thank you, Edwige, for sharing with us. I'm kind of wondering, like, that sorghum beer in the Rwandan culture, is it still used even up to date, or it was used during those times before the modernization came in? Like you said, there are a lot of wines in our communities, people are getting modernized. So did the wine replace the sorghum beer, or even up to now it's still used in the Rwandan culture?
I could say that both cases are happening. Like in 20 past years, it was commonly the sorghum beer being served to visitors in different events. With the modernization and like the like I can say the economic progress of our country, many families are able to buy they have access to wine, those different wines, but still the sorghum beer is used in the Rwandan culture. Like for example, you may find it in different events, especially in rural areas, of course, but even in urban areas, the sorghum beer still have that value. It means something to the Rwandan community.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I think those are all of the researches we've been able to work on. Yeah, but when making an analysis, we can remark a certain commonality in all the food menus and all the cultures we learned about. For example, the main character which is to be identified in all the food menus and cultures is unity. For example, in the Pennsylvanian culture, yeah, the Gumbis were prepared to unite people and share that food in a common pot, which is the same for the Hawaiian, the Hindu wedding food, the Hindu wedding ceremonies, where rice was thrown on the bride and the groom during the marriage ceremony, which meant that people were united and could commit themselves to come to the ceremony and enjoy with others, just to show that they are with the bride and the groom, which is also the same for the tailgaters. Yeah, the tailgating, as you said, was meant to unite people for when they were fans of football games. Yeah, that common unity in all the food menus and cultures is the main characteristic.
Well, I also analyzed that there is also another commonality where you find that in all the festivals that have been happening in these food menus that we try to analyze, you find that on each event in every culture, they have like a food which matches with that culture. Like for example, if we talk of the Japanese rice, whenever they would go to give like offerings to their gods during the Buddhist festivals, rice represented them. When we talk about like for the Hawaiian poi, it was also the same thing. Like their poi, whenever they would have any event or anyone coming back from anywhere, they would serve like that Hawaiian poi, and you'd find that in all these cultures, their festivals would really match with the food that they're really giving to the people. So that can also be like another commonality which is within these cultures that we've been analyzing.
Yeah, I think what it's like a deep analysis that you've made. There is really unity among like many of those foods that we studied. Like, but for example, what I realized is that they are also somehow different. even though the purpose was to have people together, but also those foods were different in terms of what they used in their processes. For example, in the dirt or in the clean potlatch, like they had specific foods to use, but when you go to the tailgating event, they could bring whatever. It could change from time to time. They had no like specific foods, even though there were those foods which were repetitively being used, but it could be changed from time to time. But still, the main focus of having the tailgating event was the unity. So the difference that I realized from all of those foods is that even though the purpose is to have people together, even though the purpose of is to keep their culture, but each and every culture has its own way of preserving their culture. They have their own foods, and they always had that, like, I could say, call it ethnocentrism. Like, this is what we prefer to use in our events. This is another culture says this is what we have to use. So they have different things that they use in their cultures. That is the difference that I've been able to realize. So thanks everyone for sharing, and I think this was interesting, and I really I learned a lot from these cultures and from both of your researchers. Thank you very much.
Thank you too.